Hopefully, there we go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am so excited to introduce you to Nikki Cassebohm today on Purposely. Super excited to hear her story. Welcome, Nikki.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. I'm super excited to be here.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask you a bit of a weird question to kick off. So if you were at a barbecue or a party and someone asked you, so Nikki, what do you do? What would you tell them?
So I would say that, well, I mean, I'm a qualified personal trainer. However, what I do is very different to, I guess, a normal personal trainer. And I like to identify as a women's wellness coach, advocating not just the physical, but the mental well-being aspects for my clients. I think that it's really important when we look at someone's well-being and their lifestyle that we're not just looking at the physical aspects and the training side of things. You know, I've been into health and fitness for about 6 years now, and I've had my own physical transformation, but the most profound experience that I have has been centered around the mental transformation that I've had. So I guess for me, what I do is I holistically look at someone's body. I look at their lifestyle and integrate not just the physical, but the mental aspects and well-being for them into that.
Amazing. I love it. I've been stalking you a little bit on Instagram. I really love your authenticity, and I love the way that you talk about mindset and also neuroscience, which is something I'm super passionate about. So I feel like you're ticking all my boxes. But before we go and talk about some of that stuff, I'd like to really hear about the story behind the story, because I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and decide, I want to have this physical transformation. I know that you've been a bikini model. I'm not sure if you're still a bikini model, but I'd love to hear about the story or the journey behind the story.
Yeah, so I am still a bikini competitor. This year I am taking the year off to focus on my business. So yeah, that's definitely on the cards for next year. But this year is just focusing on my business. So a little bit about me and my story. So I'm originally from Adelaide, and I grew up my whole life as a dancer. And I went on to be a dance teacher for 6 years. And I guess I never really found my true calling with what I wanted to do in life. I felt a bit lost. And then it was three years ago where I experienced a really traumatic event that helped me have a big shift in how I saw my life and that trajectory of where that was going. And since then, you know, I've gone on to compete and earn my pro card and launch my business and move here to Sydney to pursue my passion as a catalyst for change for women who are really looking to have transformational breakthroughs and achieve really happy and healthy lives. And that was something that I really struggled with. Even as a dancer, I didn't have a healthy life. I fueled my mind and body with things that weren't good for me and that didn't serve me. I partied really hard. I drank lots of alcohol, stupid amounts. And I got caught up in that. I got caught up in the scene of unconscious behavior, and I wasn't truly living authentically. And I'll have to take you back then what happened 3 years ago, and I'll go back to it in a minute. But when I was a little girl, I was sexually assaulted, and I was only 14 at the time, and I never opened up and spoke about it. I never told anyone. You know, those men took that power from me, and I lost my voice. I was so scared as a little girl to be judged. You know, who would believe a young 14-year-old? Who would look at me and judge me? And so I didn't tell anyone. I stayed silent about it. And that was the moment that initiated that inauthentic way of being in myself. Yeah. And so all those ways that I acted through high school were a way to fill that void of losing losing my power. I partied too hard, drank too much alcohol, and all of that was this mask and facade that I put on to protect myself.
Yeah, I think that everyone can relate to the self-medication route. I think we've all been there, and I think that a lot of people are probably self-medicating at the moment with COVID-19 and all of the stress and anxiety. I just want to go back to something that you said. You said that you had a traumatic event that really spurred the was the catalyst for change. If you're comfortable, I would love to hear about what that is, because I think that these moments can open up new ways of thinking for people who have maybe been in something similar.
Yeah, I feel comfortable talking about it because it has been such a big impact for me in my life. So, as I was saying, I was being this very inauthentic and not being true to myself person, and I was like that all the way up until 3 years ago, when it was when I went on a holiday to Bali with some friends of mine, and it quickly turned into a very scary trip. Something I didn't know I was walking myself into when my drink had been spiked. And we were in a villa on a very small island. There was no motorized vehicles, no hospitals. No one really spoke English, barely spoke English. And so I'm stuck here on this little island in a villa with my friends, thinking, what is happening? What is going on? And normally when you experience, a drug or a psychedelic trip, it can last anywhere from 1 to 3, all the way up to 10 or so hours. This psychedelic trip that I was stuck in, lasted for 3 fucking days.
Holy shit! Wow.
And I couldn't get out of it. My friends kept telling me, just snap out of it. I kept saying, snap out of it, Nikki. Like, what are you doing? I was looking at them in disbelief of what's going on. Why do I feel this way? And I was so scared, and I couldn't do anything. I was helpless. And, you can use your imagination for a second to imagine how that would feel, being on an island involuntarily on drugs, feeling really unsafe and really unsure of what's going on. You can imagine some of the things that you would be thinking and experiencing.
Yeah, wow.
It was full on, and sometimes I think sharing some of the really deep and dark parts of that story isn't always necessary to get the message across of going through something traumatic and how I came out of the other side of that. But in the end of all of that, I ended up in a hospital, and my friends left me there. And the next morning, I woke up in a psychotic ward, and my father had to come all the way to Bali to rescue me from that nightmare.
Wow.
And I talk about, it was intense, and I always talk about when I share this experience, I talk about what happened after and my gratitude towards it. And it sounds a bit absurd, being grateful towards trauma. But the way I look at it now is because that was the first time I established my self-awareness, Emily. I was stuck in that facade. I was stuck living that life of the party girl, and I never saw myself for who I truly was. And I, for the first time, opened my eyes to myself, to the people who I was associating myself around me, and I saw that superficial person in the mirror. And I saw that direction that my life was going to head in if I continued to be the same person. And, if that was the type of people I was hanging out with, what does that say about me? And that was the moment where I took a step back, and it just completely shifted the way I looked at life and how I saw myself.
Amazing. So it sounds like you had a spiritual awakening in a way that was enforced upon you. I mean, I've heard of people having spiritual awakenings because they instigate it themselves, but amazing insight and an amazing wake-up call that the universe kind of sent you.
Yeah, I was very lucky, very fortunate to be given an awakening call, but then also to see the light in it. also to see the lessons in the story.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important. I firmly believe that things don't happen to us, they happen for us.
Yeah.
And it's about how you deal with it, how you react, and what you take forward. So many people are living in the past, whereas every single thing that happens in your life is a blessing, is a gift. So I love that. I love you're talking my language. Let's come now to what you're doing now, because I know that you talk a lot about neuroscience and mindset. So why do you think it's so important for women in particular to really work on this stuff? Because I know I've done a lot of work around my mindset and had lots of coaches, and I totally get it. But I think that a lot of women don't. So what would be your message to them?
Yeah, and this is a tough one because, we all experience our own journey. We all have our own story, and we all put our own meanings on what happens to us in our lives. And I do see that there's such an increasing desire for women in particular, men too, but for my clients, the women that I work with, I see an increasing desire for people to want to live a more purposeful and a more fulfilled life. They want to be happy. They want to step out of their stress responses. We're living in a chronically stressed world. And I am seeing a massive shift, a huge collective shift with coaches in the health and fitness industry incorporating more holistic approaches where neuroscience is becoming mainstream. And a lot of coaches are beginning to incorporate mindset practices like journaling and mindful eating. But for me, I feel like there's this key missing link that isn't being spoken about, and this whole area that isn't being tapped into around neuroscience, around psychology, and around the holistic approaches that I'm now moving down towards. And it's not just health and fitness professionals. It's not just the health and fitness industry. You see people in corporate roles. Your CEO of Fortune 500 companies who are using these holistic modalities like meditation, like cold showers, like their bulletproof coffees. And they're using these benefits to improve their productivity, to improve their energy, their focus, their sex, their relationships. And so it's not just a health and fitness industry. But I think as a health and fitness professional, I have this power and I have this knowledge to give. And I see so many women doubting themselves. I see that they're sick of listening to their inner critic, and they're constantly questioning what works. There's so much information out there, and that negative self-talk keeps them stuck in a world of fear and a world of self-doubt. And so the things that I've been learning on the way that I've been able to use for myself, I'm now using that and integrating that into coaching processes to show women a new way. There's a science-backed training. There's a science-backed coaching that's heart-centered, but science-based. And these women can have unstoppable self-belief. They can have the inner confidence, and they can build up their self-worth again so that they can create, a better relationship with their minds. And then if they, integrate health and fitness, cool. But that's going to have a ripple effect in their whole life, not just health and fitness, their relationships, their work, and all of those holistic areas of their life that are correlate to each other.
I love it. It's so important. I think that everything starts with the mind, and we're now realizing the mind-body connection. And I'm into meta-medicine. I don't know if you've heard of meta-medicine. So the philosophy that if you have a physical condition, it starts with something that's going on metaphorically in your mind. And for me, I had a thing called pubic symphysis when I was pregnant, and I couldn't walk, so it was so debilitating. And I had a lot of therapy about it afterwards. It actually all stemmed from stress and me actually not wanting to give birth to my son because I was so stressed about my business. So I think it's so important for people to think about things holistically, because everyone is looking for a quick fix. It's like all these crash diets, and it's the new gym that's just open, like 9 rounds, and there's all these fads that kind of go. So when you talk about neuroscience, how do you embed that into your coaching practices with your clients?
Yeah, and it's an interesting one because there's so many different ways to talk about neuroscience, and there's so many different ways that I can go about this. So when we look at neuroscience, we're talking about the central nervous system, right? We're talking about what's going on in our body. And we're using the knowledge of neuroscience to regulate human behavior. And we know that when we're stuck in a fight or flight response, that stress response, that we lose that ability to observe what's happening in the body. We lose that ability to be present. So a good example of this is when we're having a fight with a friend or a partner, and you're both trying to get your opinion and you're both trying to get your points across, and you're just guns blazing, attacking each other. Why can't you see my view? Why can't you see my view? And it might be 10 minutes later where you come back and you go, well, I got a bit angry there. I'm sorry. We kind of got out of hand. Another example is being stuck in traffic, that road rage, that increased heart rate, those sweaty palms, gripping the steering wheel, yelling at, old Nancy who's going 20 miles in front of you. That's also a fight or flight response. You're stuck in that fear response, and it becomes so chronic. And so with the neuroscience that I've been learning and how I've begun to understand how we can switch back on our prefrontal cortex so that we can begin to have more conscious behavior, we can have more conscious decisions, more conscious experiences to how we're approaching our food. Are we using our mindful eating practices, or are we constantly stuck in a stress response where every time we look in the mirror, it's that fight response of not good enough, that fight response of you're never going to lose that weight. And like you said, it all starts with the mind. And we know that if we're creating pathways in our brain to tell us the same thing every day, we're strengthening those pathways. Not good enough, I'm fat, I'll never lose the weight. Why do I even bother? I'm just going to give up. And when we keep using those same thought patterns, we strengthen those neurons in our brain. We strengthen those thoughts patterns. And those synapses, they grow with behavior. They grow with the habit. A habit is something that we do every day, like brushing our teeth, like having a shower. That becomes unconscious. And we like that. But what we don't like is when our unconscious habits turn into telling ourselves we're not good enough, or going to the fridge and taking out that extra bowl of ice cream that we know we shouldn't have. And so when we think about neuroscience, we think about our thought patterns, we think about our stress responses. I think that a lot of people are looking for the language for why they're stuck in that stress response, why they're having dis-ease in their body because they're stuck in that stress response. The whole day, they might be at work, they might be stuck in corporate, and their boss comes to them and says, paper's due in 1 hour. They haven't done the paper, and what do? That stress response, and they'll stay stuck in that stress response the whole day. And they'll go home, they might have a fight with their partner, stress response again. And so it's become chronic. It's become chronic in modern day society. And I think it's important that we can begin to create some more ease for people's systems in their central nervous system so they can step out of that response.
So, it's so obvious that exercise and movement is really, really important for your health and well-being, and integrating that with the neuroscience and the mindset, I think it's a really, really powerful approach. And what I see is that young people today are so into personal development and self-development, and they're really open-minded, and I absolutely love it because every time I have a conversation like this with someone like you, I learn something and I expand my knowledge, and it's amazing. But it's really interesting that I think some older people are really stuck in the old way of doing things, and they're really stuck in these negative habits, and they almost poo-poo all of this kind of mindset stuff is like kumbaya bullshit. So when you get a new client that's a bit like that, How do you work with them to unlock that stuck state? Because I think it's really interesting how different people kind of achieve that.
Yeah. Interesting question. And this is actually something that I've been working around with my own limiting beliefs. These older people are going to want to work with someone young like myself. What kind of knowledge do I have to give them? And when I think about it, it is a very traditional way that we see some older clients thinking. They're stuck in the traditional ways that their parents taught them. And there's certainly been a huge shift, a very radical shift in the health and fitness industry and the innovative ways that people are bringing their coaching practices. I mean, neuroscience has only been around really for the past 10 or so years, so that's still super new. When my older clients come to me, it really is case by case, but the biggest thing is probably based around their self-awareness with their self-talk. A lot of I mean, I take my auntie, for example. The way that she looks at some of her coping mechanisms with, it might be alcohol, and what that means for her in her life. That she feels that she has to have that. That's her stress release for the day.
Yeah.
And so how can we create some other stress relievers that mimic those same endorphins, that mimic that same feel good sensory patterns, and use something else to substitute that in replacement? I think talking about mindset practices with my older clients, some of them love it, and some of them are like, what do you mean mindset practices? I've been doing this for 60 years. So, I mean, it's true though, and that traditional way of thinking is all they know, right? And I think sometimes you've got to show them you don't know what you don't know. And if you can give them something that's science-based, if you can give them something that's knowledge-based, they're not going to look at you as some, woohoo practitioner. They're going to look at you and go, this girl knows her stuff. Maybe she could help me in this area. So it's a case by case, but you can, work around stress. Stress is a big one, and certainly using the science behind why they're doing something that they want.
Yeah, so it sounds like the evidence-based approach of science, neuroscience sounds like it's got some weight behind it. It doesn't sound like, neuro-linguistic programming or NLP sounds a little bit like, people look at that and think, like, what do you mean? Like, I'm a trained hypnotist, and people think that, they're just some people just aren't up for that. But whatever, they're probably not the people listening to this podcast either. They probably don't do any self-development. But anyway, so looking back over your life, what would be like your biggest achievement? Something you're like super proud of?
When I went through my experience as a little girl, losing my voice and losing my authentic ability to show up and speak my truth and share my story and share what was coming up for me, I lost that vulnerability. I lost that authentic way of being. And I've done a lot of inner work to try and build that back up and find that for myself again. And I think the most powerful experience that I've had was when I did a public speaking event this year back in March with Jessica from the Rising Woman Empowerment.
Oh, yes, yep.
And that was super scary for me because high school, I didn't do the public speaking. I didn't do the class orals. I was the kid that stayed behind after class because I was too scared to get up in front of the class. And so for me to step out of my self-talk, my inner critic, my limiting beliefs, and have the courage to do it anyways, even if I was, shit scared to do it. That was the first time where I could truly step out and begin to use my story and share that with other women, and lead by example and be that voice for other women who may be stuck in their experiences that feel as if they can't share.
Yeah, it's so brave. It's amazing, and I'm a big advocate for just doing the things that scare you the most. And I've got a 7-year-old son, and we have a saying in our family that the Jacksons never give up. So I really want to hardwire that mindset of I'm really scared, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And it's so funny because sometimes I'll be cracking the shits because I don't want to do something or something's not working, and he says, "Mummy, the Jacksons never give up." So it's amazing, like how important it is to hardwire this stuff when you're young, but how we somehow hardwire ourselves for all of this negative stuff. But I love that you did something that frightened the shit out of you, and did it as a symbol for other women that it's okay to speak up and own their truth. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is people being purpose-led. So I think the best leaders, the best business owners have really found their purpose and they've tapped into it, and that's what's driving them. So I guess what would be your purpose? If you could sum it up in a sentence, what would it be?
Oh, God. I think about my purpose and my legacy quite often, actually. And I always think back to how can I serve others? How can I show up and, like I mentioned before, be a catalyst for change for women who are looking to have transformational breakthroughs? I think the biggest purpose for me is showing women that the answers that they're seeking, the power that they have to change, they might be looking for happiness, they might be looking for weight loss means to fulfill a void. Everything that they're seeking to fulfill their happiness, to fulfill their goals, to fulfill their dreams, they already have the potential to do that. I didn't think in the deepest, darkest depth of my heart, I never could have imagined the life that I have for myself 4 years ago. I thought I was going to be a dance teacher. That's all I thought I was going to be. And although that was what fulfilled me then, I wouldn't have found my purpose and I wouldn't have found my passion. And all of the answers and all of the lessons that I've learned along the way have come from my own introspection. It's come from my own being with and noticing and observing and asking questions and wondering why things are the way they are. And so when I think about my passion and my purpose, and I see so many other women looking for that too, looking to just be happy, looking to gain back their self-love, looking to gain back their inner work. How can I stand up and be a voice for them? How can I stand up and show them the pathway? How can I begin to guide them along their own journey? And it doesn't have to be a journey of healing from trauma. It can be a journey towards finding the inner happiness and that inner self-love. And I think that's really important, that we need more women like that, standing up for each other. And I think that's what women empowerment is.
I love it. I love it. I had Jess on this podcast, and I can see why you two are mates, because you're so on the same page, and I love it. You're talking my language, ticking all my boxes. So I'm just going to go like a little bit left now. So what do you think about the term millennials, and do you like being called a millennial? Do you not care? What's the go?
What do I think of the term millennials? What's the go? When I saw that you invited me onto this podcast, and I saw the word millennial, and I thought, me, millennial? What does that even mean? I think at the moment I'm still on the journey towards that, and I guess that's why they call it, self-development and not self-developed. It's a continuous journey for myself. And I think that word for me stands out as someone who aspires to be a millennial, someone who aspires to be innovative in the way that they seek to create change in the world, or the way they seek to create change in people's lives. So I certainly wouldn't characterize myself as a millennial, but that's certainly something that I would aspire to look up to, being that for myself, and surrounding myself with others who are like that.
Amazing, and that's what I think millennials are about. It's I'm fascinated with human behaviour, and I actually wanted to study anthropology, so I'm doing lots of research, and I'm researching what I call the millennial mindset because I've interviewed nearly 100 or just over 100 millennial entrepreneurs, and they all speak like you, and they all just have this amazing mindset that I'm trying to tap into because I think it's phenomenal. So one of the things I've found is that really successful millennials all have a daily routine. Like they get up early, they're really disciplined. So what is your daily routine or morning routine that you can share with the listeners?
Yeah, awesome. I love millennial mindset. That's so cool. It just rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, there we go.
So my morning rituals and routines. So I love Mel Robbins. She has this this tool called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Whoa,
And
I love it.
it's good, isn't it? Have you used it? Have you used it before?
I have, yeah, yep. So I do coaching as well, and so I use that with my clients who struggle to get out of bed, or who struggle with procrastination. So
yeah,
love it.
Yeah, it's powerful. And in that 5-second window of conscious decision, you just, you have the power to either do it or not. And that one's been really profound for me in the mornings getting up. So that's how I get up super early in the morning, and I'm normally up around 5:30. At the moment, a little bit later at 6, now that I don't have to commute or travel to work. And then from there, I always go outside and do my guided meditation, which has been interesting at the moment because it's so cold in Sydney.
I've always as cold as here. It's fucking freezing in Melbourne. Like, I get up at 5 o'clock. I don't want to be competitive, but I get up at 5 o'clock and I go for a walk, and it's like sometimes 7 degrees.
Yeah, amazing.
But anyway, so you get up super early, you go outside, do your meditation, and then what else do you do?
Then always water before my morning coffees. I like to do a bulletproof coffee sometimes with some MCT oil. And then from there, I pretty much jump straight on my laptop. If I'm feeling very, chitter chatter, if I've found it very hard to still my mind in my meditation practice, then I'll do some journaling while I'm having my morning coffee. And I always start with what I'm...
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I need to ask you before I forget. What is a bulletproof coffee? Because you said that before, and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
So there's a thing called biohacking, and biohacking is ways to hack your mind, pretty much, ways to hack your mindset and improve your cognition. And so a bulletproof coffee is a morning coffee that you have, and it has substances in them, and you can use natural substances to increase your focus, to increase your attention span, and your general cognitive ability. So you're a little bit sharper, a little bit more energy to focus, and it definitely helps with what you said before, the procrastination.
Wow, and so what kind of substances? Because when I hear the word substances, I think of MDMA. So yeah. What kind of substances are you thinking about?
You could use something natural like a ginkgo biloba or a turmeric, or the MCT oil, grass-fed butter as well. Don't ask me the science behind the grass-fed butter, but you can be a little scientist and integrate little different things into your coffee. And yeah, it's a super good way to just wake up the brain from the morning.
Amazing. I don't have any problems. I'm a morning person, so I'm like one of those annoying people that as soon as I wake up, I'm like, hi, I'm bouncing around, and my husband's like, oh my God, just and he's like, needs his coffee before he wakes up. So anyway,
get on your level.
With coffee, I'd probably literally be bouncing off the walls, but for everybody else out there, I love it. Great tip. So What's the future look like for you and your business? Like where do you want to be, say, like 5 years time?
5 years time. Yeah. 5 years time from now, I definitely see myself opening up a clinic or a practice and stepping out of the role as a personal trainer. I'm doing my diploma now to become a mind-body practitioner, and that will allow me to work, really closely with people's minds and, the self beliefs, the patterns, their programming from their childhood, to help them, achieve change. A lot of people want to change. A lot of people want change, but they don't want to change, right? We mentioned earlier that people don't want to put in the hard work. They want the magic pill. And I guess for me, I want to give them that magic pill and do the hard work for them, get them to come into the session and start asking them, those really thought-provoking questions to create that mindset shift to them. And so I see myself doing that in a clinic and in a practice rather than in a gym space. And I'd love to create retreats where we have women who come together and we take them interstate or overseas, and we do, a whole week of mindfulness and meditation and all of these holistic practices. And they wake up and they have their bulletproof coffees and they exercise and we go for bushwalks and we connect together and women are looking for, they're looking for spaces like that. They want that community. And it can be hard if, you go to the gym, but your friends and your family aren't aligned with the same vision and passion you have. So what a beautiful way to create a space where women can connect with like-minded individuals and can be heard and can be seen and can, do their storytelling and show up and find their voice and their power again. So I certainly see myself doing, empowerment retreats or something like that in the future. And then definitely my public speaking is something that I'd like to dabble in a little bit more. I love showing up and being a voice for others. And I love talking about science and neuroscience and psychology and health and fitness. And I just love sharing knowledge. I think there's so much knowledge out there. And to be able to provide something that works for people to be like, wow, that's what I'm experiencing. That's how I felt. That's the kind of stuff that I'm dealing with right now. And the way to do that is to get out there, get myself out there and step beyond my fear, even though that's, it's a very scary vision, to step beyond that and be courageous in doing it anyway.
I love it. I would definitely come into one of your empowerment retreats, especially if you were just I think it would be amazing. One of the things I got from the conversation I had with her was around how it's so important for women to have a support network and a tribe. And I feel like in this day and age, we're just living so much more separately. Like, if you think about the tribal days or when we were cavemen, we lived in a village and everybody supported each other, and that's where the saying comes from, it takes a village to raise a child. But I feel that so many women feel isolated and alone, and also a lot of women are very competitive with each other. And I think that what you and Jess are doing around the rising empowerment movement is just absolutely awesome. So where can you find out more about that? Because I think it's a great mission, and I think that there's so many women out there who need this.
Yeah, so I guess the best way people can begin to find out and follow that journey is to head to either my Instagram, which is Nikki Cassa, NIKKICASSA, or head to my website. It's nikkicassa.com. And you'll definitely, if you just watch that space, you'll definitely hear about, that transition into the mind-body practitioner, or then transition into opening up a space where, women can come and experience our community, where we hear each other, we see each other, and we support each other.
I love it. And one of the things about that movement is this whole concept of having conversations that go 3 levels deep, because I think a lot of conversations just hover around the comfortable, and we put that mask on and we don't actually speak our truth. So I think it's so important for women to have that safe place to be able to talk about shit that's happened to them, instead of living in shame, because I think that shame is such a toxic emotion for women to be feeling, and so many women do feel shamed. Whether it's mum shame, whether it's I'm not good enough, whatever it is. So I love what you're doing, and that's probably a great place to end our conversation, although I could probably speak to you all day. But, I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us your time. It was amazing. You're amazing and so inspiring. And if people want to find out more about you, we're going to put all of your social handles with this podcast episode. But thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that everyone's enjoyed this conversation as much as I have.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. I'm very grateful to have and be surrounded by women like yourself who are opening up spaces like this, so that, you know, women like myself can step in and share their passion and their vision and have a voice and be heard. So thank you. I'm very grateful.
No problems. Thank you so much.
Bye. Have a nice day.